Welcome to the Batman Book Club's Road to No Man's Land, Part 3. I am your host, Ryan Lauer, and with me, as always, on this grand adventure is Peter R. Verra. Peter, how you doing?
Hello. How are we all doing in the library today?
Excellent. The Wayne Manor study. We're learning a lot, revisiting a lot, reading a lot. Pete, we're making some great progress in this omnibus known as the Road to No Man's Land omnibus.
We've got a good amount.
That's how far we are into this. We're almost halfway through this beast.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. This has been a monthly venture. And I kind of like it spaced out that way. We're doing well, but you never know. We might get towards the end of this and be like, you want to do 2 parts this month? You want to do 3 parts this month? You want to do the entire No Man's Land discussion just this month?
Somebody's
I don't think we'll ever
ambitious.
get that crazy.
How much coffee have you had today? How much coffee?
I haven't even had Mountain Dew yet.
Wow.
It has been all water. I had cereal.
Sugar water.
Yes, we've done. So this is part 3 of this 8-part series, and each part is covering 6 issues. We're going in sequential order here of this Road to No Man's Land omnibus. So in this discussion here, we'll be talking about 6 books: Batman number 554, Batman Huntress spoiler, Blunt Trauma number 1. What a mouthful. Detective Comics number 721, Catwoman number 57, Batman Arkham Asylum, Tales of Madness number 1, and Robin number 53. Now, Peter, looking at this list, were there many that stood out to you that you thought, "Ooh, I remember that one. That's a good one"?
I remembered the Arkham Asylum issue because that image of the Joker when he's like kind
like
of
the fisheye lens.
Yeah, like I remembered that. That's what actually stood out to me. Surprisingly, the story didn't stand out to me as much.
Same here. Actually, I remember that image. I don't know where I would have ever come across it unless it is just one of those random issues that was thrown in a grab bag.
Yeah, something like
or
that.
Something like that. Like I've read that before because the story wasn't there was, and we'll get to it here in a few. The story also was very like, oh yeah, I've read this before.
I also think out of so far the 3 clusters we've done, this was the weakest.
Boom. I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, there were 2 stories in here I didn't enjoy for the first time, whereas the other 2 clusters, I seem to enjoy everything. But still the good outweighs the bad here.
Yeah.
But overall, it's still an exciting run through No Man's Land with Batman and company. I thought this was a wonderful display of the Bat family at the time. All the major characters were in this: Huntress, spoiler, Robin, Nightwing, Batman himself, a little bit of Gordon, Montoya, Bullock. So all those guys were great. I really enjoyed all those interactions, but we'll get into it deeper. But yeah, definitely the weakest so far of our as we continue on here.
And I wanted to say that same thing to you, and how it definitely didn't feel like it was bad.
No, not at all.
I felt like in some of it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, just starting us off, the first one of Batman 554, I ended that one very much. I don't know. I felt a little unfulfilled.
Oh, really?
It.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. For
and
me,
it wasn't connecting with me for some reason. And I felt like there was a massive info dump at the very end that wasn't needed. And maybe that's what made me like pump the brakes and really think about it. Of like, wait, what?
Okay, for the first issue for me, actually they were back to back. It was Catwoman and first was the Arkham Asylum. Oh, it was Catwoman into Arkham Asylum. That's where it got really kind of dull for me. I really was enjoying Detective and Robin because I felt like they were companion pieces.
Yes,
essentially of the same story. And we find out that the Earthquakeologist or whatever she's called from the first issue
makes a return. Relazzo.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call her Randazzo.
All right, Randazzo.
It's not who she is, but she
Randazzo.
We learn a lot about this Quakemaster. We find out who Quakemaster is, which is wonderful. Which is the first kind of wrench in the gears of No Man's Land, right? Like, oh wow, okay, this is an old villain who's turned I guess I don't know how you would describe Quakemaster until we get there. But I enjoyed all that part. Batman and Robin saving people, Huntress. I thought the Huntress spoiler issue was the best issue of the run, to be honest, as far as
It was
single
great.
issue. It was
Hmm.
really great to read. I enjoy this version of Huntress the most, this kind of chip on her shoulder, angry.
Makes her interesting.
Um
She's like a
yeah.
little bit of a pisser, which
Hmm.
that's always entertaining, whether
This is
TV,
what Damian
movies,
Wayne should
comics.
be like, and it shouldn't be
Yeah,
even Damian's Huntress.
because even though she's a little bit of like a pisser, you're constantly rooting for her too. Because it
Yeah.
is just kind of like, oh yeah, like you said, she has a chip on her shoulder, but she is a good guy. There's
And
no doubt about it.
she connects with Spoiler a little bit, probably
Hmm.
more so in Spoiler's end because she knows everything that's going on, whereas Huntress is in the dark by intention. But it was fascinating to read, and I think you know not living through an earthquake, but living through Hurricane Sandy, having no power, having no electricity, like you kind of saw a little bit of this out there in the real life. So like revisiting this now, it kind of hits a little differently. Having
Sure.
lived through that type of experience where you're relying on generators, and at one point the mayor's like, "This generator's giving me a headache." I'm like, I remember that. Like I remember the whole block just sounded like generator after
Wow.
like everyone had their generator in their driveway keeping their fridge up running. So that stuff like rings bells. So like I said, like reading it now post Sandy is definitely kind of like, oh, I
You're reading
remember.
it differently.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
reading them differently. There's some heavy hitters in this run of stories. I mean, Doug Mensch, Klaus Janson are on Batman 554.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Dixon does that Hunter spoiler issue. Chuck
Mm-hmm.
Dixon again on Detective Comics, with Graham Nolan and Klaus Janson on that one. Devin K. Grayson, I can't think of what he's written, but his name,
She.
she, okay, sorry.
She.
Uh, I know that I've read
Devon's a huge
her
Nightwing
stuff
writer.
before. Okay,
Devon's written a lot of Batman stuff. She's been
maybe
around.
in this collection already. Then Nightwing issues
She's
were written by
she's
her.
written a lot of
Okay,
stuff. Yeah, which is surprising because Devon is one of my favorite writers. And then reading, her issue of what did she write? And I was like, oh, I think was it Catwoman? She teamed up with Ballant.
yeah,
Yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't like this. This is like the first
yeah.
issue I've never enjoyed. I was kind of bummed out.
And then R.I.P. Alan Grant. He wrote the
Mm-hmm.
Arkham Asylum issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chuck Dixon against this was like the
There's
Chuck
a lot of
batch.
Dixon in this. There's gonna be a lot of Dixon in this.
But okay, well, yeah, let's get it out of the way then. Of Catwoman 57, I did see of like, oh, this is a Poison Ivy and Catwoman story. Cool. But yeah, I'm with you. I didn't really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's kind of
just
like just going
eh.
on in the background of No Man's Land. It's not really part of the main storyline.
Yeah, and I understand for this omnibus they're going to try and include absolutely everything, but yeah, in the end, and I think it's out of sync because I thought so. This was a fun learning experience of this batch was learning of Mackenzie Bach. Yeah, how about that?
A
Actually,
great pull, which
yes,
ended up, which now reading this, you're like huge payoff for the Batman because you're like,
yeah,
there they are,
yeah.
they're
Reeves
here.
has done his homework.
And the first time I felt this way while reading a comic, like as a reader, was Foley in Rises.
Oh, okay,
Foley appears in No Man's Land later on. Obviously,
nice.
you get an idea what probably happens to him based on Rises.
Hmm.
But like I had that moment years ago with Foley. So to
I
have that moment now post the Batman, it's kind of fun. It
Yeah,
really is. It
it
really.
was, and I was like, wait, no way. Uh, because at first I thought Mackenzie, and for whatever reason I was thinking of Kenzie in the movie, and then with Bach, and I'm like, oh, so from one name he took two, but then I saw it later on. I was like Mackenzie, and I'm Mackenzie. Oh, and I actually dropped that on Build the latest chapter by chapter podcast we did.
Mhm.
I told him I was like, I know there's so many others that knew this. It's not like I made some kind of great
Oh
revelation,
yeah.
but it just clicked of, oh my gosh, it's him. And Bill didn't know that either, so that's cool. But I'm pretty sure in this, so we see Bullock in the Catwoman issue. We see Bullock with his arm in a sling, and I thought that we saw Bach in this, and to where it's like, well, this doesn't add up because the issue that you just did right before this, Bach was like he was being held captive
Hmm.
by the Quake Masters people. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit of like synchronicity of just doesn't in the timeline. This doesn't add up or make sense then. And it's not like a huge deal. It's just like I wasn't in this issue was very fine. And then you follow that up with, and maybe that's why overall I felt a little unfulfilled of all of this batch, is because the Arkham story that follows it, I mean, it's kind of pointless. It's because they mentioned there's an earthquake, but everything's fine.
Well, it's because
That's why they include it.
Yeah, which is hey, look, that's the point of the omnibus. You're going to get you're going to get everything. Even the tie-ins you probably wouldn't have purchased on your own. This is your opportunity to read everything as it was. But I didn't pick up on the whole Bach thing. I now that you mention it, like I'm trying to flip through it and trying to figure out where he kind of went missing in the issue.
There's in the Arkham story, it seems like there's a bunch of different artist varieties, but I did really like, oh man, what's her name? Samantha, who's the witch, and they do the flashback of
that. Was interesting.
That, like, to me, just because that stuff, we're creeping up on the fall season, in up in the Northeast around the fall, and the history
Feels
of
very
witchcraft
hocus
and stuff.
pocus.
Yeah, go figure, right? And I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that like that was cool. But overall, that issue which was too bad because it had Riddler and it had Scarecrow.
I didn't like
Joker,
the Riddler design.
Like,
he kind of looked like a little lumpy. He looked more like gaggy.
Well, his story too, the art style, and that's how I really was like, I've read this before because I remember this short, like this little short story. But yeah, that one, those two, whenever I reread this, I'll probably just skip those two because I just don't, it just doesn't.
I enjoyed the Scarecrow design. I didn't like Croc's
Scarecrow
design.
looks great. I didn't like,
Croc.
Same. But the meat and potatoes, I think, of this, the big takeaway is Quakemaster.
Yeah, and we can finally get into that. I'm excited. And
I think you remembered who Quakemaster was, didn't you? Because you had like this shit-eating grin on your face when I mentioned it last time.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you didn't spoil it for me.
Because
you're letting me enjoy the material.
Part for me is like we can experience things like Bach and McKinsey together, but there's things like Quakemaster where I get to see your reaction. There's other things that'll come down the line as we
I definitely didn't call it, and spoiler incoming. So if you haven't read it and you don't want to know, like, pause now. But as you see, Robin's putting pieces together, and I was a little frustrated because I wasn't able to continue reading. But the issue, it might have been it's the end of the detective issue, where he joins Montoya and Bullock of where to track down and where Bach is being held. And I left like frustrated finishing that one because I couldn't, like, I think we had plans, we had to go do something, so I couldn't read next. And it's like, but how did you put together? Why the emphasis on right before he says words? It's almost like he changes what word he's going to say and all these hints, but I couldn't put it together. And then
it just shows you how great of a detective Tim Drake is.
Yeah. And so it really worked.
Characterization moments.
While the middle of this, for those two stories, I was like, I just don't really care much about these stories. It ends with a banger in the Robin issue and solving where this batch can almost feel like its own little story. And we find out that the identity of Quakemaster is ventriloquist.
And
that's his dummy.
How cool is that?
I was happy with that. I was like, that makes total sense. That's good.
Why he's changing his words.
Change his words because otherwise it's gonna reveal his. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. Meanwhile, it's jumping in. I feel like that issue was a fast-paced issue because we're dealing with three different storylines. Like the mayor and Gordon have guns pointed at their heads. Nightwing is on a mission to go and save them. Batman's saving more people and discovering there's even more people below the people he's helping that need help. And then Robin is with Montoya and Bullock, basically taking down this Quakemaster.
Chuck Dixon right here.
That's good stuff.
Only Chuck Dixon could take all that jazz and make a song out of it.
Yes. And I thought that's definitely a highlight of this batch, and maybe a highlight so far is this Robin issue.
It finished strong. It really did.
A lot of stuff culminates in that helps. And then also it's not even an ending to ventriloquist. So I don't know if he's popping back up somehow later on in this whole story. I'm not looking at Peter because I don't know if Peter's going to smile or anything, but because like I need to make sure because I know they were running through all the electric power lines and stuff. And oh wait, no, they did get him. Never mind. That's right. They ended up because Scarface is Arnold Wesker pulls out Scarface.
How many times do you see him come back?
Yeah. So I mean, there's still there's a resolution there for sure, but also feels like, okay, maybe we're not done with him. And that's okay. Because I don't know, use him. I don't need every story to have Scarface, but use him
It
wisely
was
and
nice for him to pop
sporadically.
up, right?
Hmm.
It
And
just
I
was.
enjoyed it, and it did. It all made sense. Um, your boy Harold,
He made
he's
a
there
few
in the
appearances.
background.
Just putting everything back together. That's what Harold does.
He's doing his Harold magic. I
Hmm.
really, I like that. I like how they're keeping. This is definitely keeping the Bat family. Before it was too expansive. I feel like we're at a point now it's almost too expansive. Like when they do a
I agree.
shot and it
It's too
shows
big.
how many, it's like, okay, do we? I don't. I miss the days where there was Robin and
4 or 5.
Batgirl, and that's kind of it. But here, this also is good in prime Bat family of Batman, Nightwing, Tim Drake, Robin, Barbara as Oracle, and then Alfred. Like they're keeping them all like kind of
Mm.
intertwined
And
with
then
their
you have the
stories.
outcasts like Huntress and Spoiler.
Exactly, in which they weren't overdone. They got an issue all to themselves, which was really good. And then yeah, Huntress pops up in the
The
next.
uninitiated.
Yes, and then Huntress pops up in the next one, in the Detective Comics issue, which is good. And yeah, she's like, oh man, she's fiery. It's fun. It's I don't know, it's good drama, and I feel like it catches Batman a little off guard with
Mm.
it too, because she isn't so like, yeah, sure, whatever you want, Batman.
She doesn't
It's
follow his rules.
basically just like F you, Batman. And it ends on a really good note too of them just like, overlooking the city, kind of talking about, I mean, that almost makes me feel a little bit the end of the Batman, talking about the state that Gotham City
Mm.
is in.
Hmm.
And it's a long road ahead. And at least in Batman, as they're on the tower, the three of them, and he says, at least it's over. And then rumble, like it's an aftershock and it starts shaking. I'm like, for now. And nope. I mean,
Got a lot of work ahead of them.
we
Got a
know
lot
there's a
of
lot
work.
of work ahead of us. I mean, we've got over half the book left, but yeah, overall weakest of the three, but there's plenty of highlights in this
Hmm.
batch for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's a lot of great just bat moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great character. Like there's, you got a lot of Bullock in here. Even in the
Yeah.
issues that I didn't like, there's a good amount of Bullock, and it's cool to see him kind of expanded a little bit. But like we mentioned, you get a little few cameos of Harold. That's fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Dick's worried about, well, how are we going to rebuild the cave? Anyone who comes to repair the mansion is going to find the cave. And Batman's just like, we got other stuff to worry about. can't even worry about that
Yeah.
right now. And it's cool seeing them just out there, just hustling, helping people, saving people, doing their thing. And even though like Batman and Huntress are at odds, Batman's like, you need rest, take a breather. Like he's kind of coaching her along. He kind of realizes he needs every hand he can get, and while he doesn't agree with her method, she's proving herself right now, and she's very useful. So, he kind of wants her to be at 100%. And I thought that was interesting. When that happened, because Huntress doesn't hold back. She pretty much tells Spoiler how she feels about Batman and Robin and all that stuff, and Nightwing. So, but it's just great just to see them out and about in Gotham City. It's just fun to read.
What do you think of? I guess what do you think of the art style in each issue? Is there a standout?
Nothing really stands out,
Yeah,
except for the Arkham Asylum issue. I didn't. It's not my favorite,
you just didn't really like
both
it.
writing and illustrating. But that's really the only thing I would say about the art. Art's good. I enjoyed it.
It
Nothing was bad.
it
About the issue.
feels kind of encapsulates that late '90s. Like this is exactly what I envision of those late '90s comics. You
Yeah,
know,
that makes sense.
Graham Nolan. Yeah, exactly. I know. Graham Nolan. You can see. Okay, so the difference when you hold that Batman issue up against the detective issue. So Klaus Jansen's on both of them, but Graham
Mhm.
Nolan assists on the detective one, and I think you can definitely tell the difference in his impression on that. I really liked Klaus's his artwork for that Batman issue. You can definitely see it in like his Batman heads faces. It just that's like, oh my god, that's Klaus Janson. And then that yellow oval shining. That
It was
yellow oval right
beautiful.
there.
Yeah,
It's
that's great.
dark in Gotham, but that baby is glowing.
It looks
You're
great.
smiling, you got nothing.
It's I'm revisiting this, and it's like I said, like even though it's the weakest of the 3 shows we've done, I had a blast reading every issue. Like
Mhm.
I still, like I love this story so much. And a lot of it has to do with just the heroic efforts of our main hero and seeing him do what he does best. And that's just saving the people of Gotham. And there's I think we got a really good amount of twists and turns in this. We saw we saw uh Dr. Julia Randazzo, which isn't her real name. She came back. The prisoners from that issue, which had nothing really to do with No Man's Land, they're actually in No Man's Land right now. Like
How do you pronounce Chiraxis?
I don't know who it is. I don't think I totally forgot about that character. I don't
It's
think I've
great.
seen
He
him
was
since.
he was in the
moth,
Arkham. He's in the Arkham issue.
the fly.
But yeah, Chiraxis, and I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
So that was interesting. So a lot of callbacks to just the beginning, which I mean is how many issues ago. So we're in store for a lot of cool things if they're already harking back to what's what started with. So it's been great to go back and read this. I really am. I'm so happy I bought this doorstop.
Yeah. It's a heavy.
This is an Eric Carter book. That's what this is. Like
that's
these
monstrous.
are Eric Carter books.
And according to you, I've got 2 more to buy too.
What I believe follows. No Man's Land Volume 2 is delayed. You told me.
Yes, that comes out,
which is fine. I'm like, okay,
I can get into it soon.
Yeah, trust me, I'll buy it. But I gotta
out of this batch, was there much that you remembered aside from Quickmaster's reveal? I don't think I asked you that yet.
I remember the stuff with Spoiler and her dad.
Okay,
that was that was interesting to me, because it shows how different Spoiler is. Mm-hmm. It's funny because as the outcasts, the 2 of them are, they're very different from the Bat family, but Spoiler seems to be more in line with whatever Tim kind of goes with, as we see later on. And she seems to kind of harken to Batman's philosophy a little bit more than Huntress, even though she hasn't been fully accepted yet. But to see her still care about her father, even though he clearly doesn't care about her, was very interesting. And it just, and it was good for that moment because they were able to bond between Huntress and Spoiler. So, but that stuff I remembered.
Nice. And then okay, let me just read it then. The next part, what books that entails, and then I'll do my follow-up. So the next time we'll be talking about Batman Shadow of the Bat number 75, Batman number 555, Detective Comics 722, Batman Shadow of the Bat 76, Robin number 54, and Batman number 556. So just by those titles, top of your head, does any of that click of, oh, I remember?
Nothing stands out. I have to actually, for me, it's got to be visual. I got to look at the cover.
You got to see the covers.
Yeah, if I see the cover, I'll be like, oh, okay, I remember this now.
Well, I did read some Shadow of the Bat.
I've been enjoying that a lot. That's probably my favorite reread out of all this, is
nice
going back to those Shadows of the Bat issues.
Well, the next that first one, I mean, this was a killer of a cover. I know I've got to hold this up so I'm holding up an infant. That cover is pretty.
I was like,
pretty great.
Mr. Freeze, like, what's going? Like, I'm trying to figure out, is that Clayface? What's going on there? Like, who?
And you ready for this? Written by Alan Grant. So
we're going for a good one.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to dip into those whenever you and I decide that we're going to do the next part. So, it felt like you kind of gave some final words. Is there anything left you have to say about particularly this batch, I guess, if you want, or you can just say
even though it had 2 weaker issues, I still think it finishes strong because of the stories that bookended it.
Yeah,
3 out of the
4 out of the 6.
4 out of 6. Yeah,
we're at least good.
I'm trying to think. I'm like, 4 out of 6.
I'm with you. It ended really strong with the Robin issue.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the end of the Batman issue, which is the first one, was a massive info dump that I didn't necessarily think was needed or necessary. We know Bruce is smart. We don't need all that to just be like, wait, what? But maybe a lot of smarter people than I found value of it and said, yeah, that tracks. I understood it. Ryan, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. So
I agree. You're an idiot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The part 3 in the books. Part 4 coming maybe next month. We'll just say next month then. All right, there you go. So Pete, this is our shortest part yet. It's only
How
been
long?
5 minutes.
Really?
No, 25.
Oh, I was like,
So
wow,
we're
that
about right
did
on
fly
time.
by. They're right. Time does fly when you're having fun.
So why don't you go ahead and plug away, sir, before we head out of here?
You can follow me on social media. It's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite platform, Vero at Pete Illustrated. You can follow one of the podcasts I do, Straight Outta Gotham at straight_O_G on Twitter and Instagram. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook fan page called Straight Outta Gotham, so consider joining both. There's a lot of good fan discourse going on there. I have another podcast, the Italian Spider-Man Coalition podcast, that I co-host with Nick and Nico Caruso. That is at Italians for Spidey. That's a lot of fun. We do that about once a month as well. So check that out. Check out at Team Yellow Oval on Twitter, because Keaton's coming back and we're really excited about that. Even though Batgirl got canceled, The Flash is still happening. So we're pumped. I'm all over BatmanOnFilm.com and Batman on Film YouTube. I got comic book reviews, you got interviews, you got stuff, toy reviews. Checking that out. A bunch of good stuff there, videos, print, all that good stuff. So I'm all over. Hit me up and let's have fun, and we'll make fun of Lauer.
That sounds good. Can I join you and make fun of Lauer?
No, because you're lower.
Okay. All right. That makes total sense, Pete. Yes, speaking of Batman on Film, I just helped with pal Ryan Haas, who you've probably heard on this show a lot. We just launched a new Batman on Film podcast called Batman Animation, where we talked about the Super Friends series episode, The Fear, that's Batman centric. It's a deep gem, okay, underrated gem, if you will, that has so many connections to Batman the Animated Series. So I'll track that down on Batman on Film. Give it a listen. And let me know what you think. And also on Batman on Film, I did a follow-up discussion with Sean Murphy. Awesome guy, awesome discussion. Track that down and listen to that as well. As far as this show, follow on Twitter and Instagram at the Batman BC for latest episode drops, upcoming episodes, sometimes some giveaways. The most recent episode that was dropped was with Clay McCormick, the writer of the White Knight Presents Red Hood #1 and 2. A great discussion with him on the first volume of Batman Black and White. So track that down wherever you listen to podcasts. And so, Pete, that means that the next episode for that is going to be a monthly wrap up with Peter R. Verra.
I like his style.
Yeah, he does some good things. So until next time you ever hear my voice or Peter's voice or your own voice, I don't know. Read my
Huntress.
Lawrence.